Yu-Gi-Oh card collection. Hey, you guys are too far away. Hold on, I need my glasses. I don't like wearing these things because I swear they make me look like a mixture of Macaulay Culkin from The Page Master and Benjamin Franklin. Never mind, I look kind of hot. Hey, it's been months, yo, but now they're back. My beautiful SpongeBob headwear set shelves. I miss them with all of my heart and soul. And if you look down below, not in the description box, which is right by the like and subscribe button, no, this down below, these are all my books. And also a pile of dirty clothes, because we're nothing but class in here. All these books, they gotta go on my very empty shelf, so stay tuned for that organization video. It'll be the stuff of dreams or nightmares, depending on how well I organize that day. But first, I am very overdue for not October, today's October, September wrap up. I read 5 books in September, and let me tell you right now, in this month, October, I have only read 1 book. Why have I only read 1 book? I'll tell you at the end of the video. So stay tuned, watch the whole thing. Give me that watch time. I want it, please. But speaking about September, it was a very good reading month, but I hardly remember what the heck happened. But I do remember the absolute joy of reading Breach of Peace by Daniel Green. Holy smokes. Speaking of smokes, all the dead bodies. What does that have to do with smoke? Maybe you set the dead body on fire and it makes smoke. Anyways, there's a lot of death in this book. Casey approved. I have done a whole separate review for it. Go watch it. It's like 8 minutes long, and it is a nice 4.5 out of 5 for me. Highest thing I've read this month and last month too. Last month, that was awful. But here's the lowdown on Breach of Peace. We got this lady cop. Her name, I nearly said it. The word Clyd. Her name is Clyd. It sounds like something else. Ugh. Anyways, she's cool. Even cooler than me. She's a rough and tough police officer living in this fantasy world. A world that is run by is it the Almighty or the Authority? It's something impressive that starts with a capital A. So you know it's a big deal. Anyways, it's magical A word. I think it's Almighty. Magical A word started this police department thing for the city. That's where Clyd is. Clyd is actually on the force with her partner, and her partner is her actual partner. He's her husband. I can't remember his name. Let's call him Bob. The classic Bob. No one's better than Bob. Bob is the GOAT, the GOAT. One day Clyd and Bob, they get this call like, hey there, there was a massacre at this really rich person's house, and there's bodies literally everywhere. There's some on the ceiling hanging off the chandelier. This one girl splayed out with her rib cage open like a demented looking bearskin rug. It's a beautiful scene. So they go there, and while they're snooping around with their other fellow police buddy Chapman, who is my favorite in this short story, because he's not a nice person. He has good intentions, but he's just a horrible man to be around because he's a jerk to everyone. I relate. So Clyd, nameless husband, and Chapman, they're looking around the fancy mansion, and they start hearing some going-ons down in the basement. So they go down there, and the story ensues. Beautiful scene. The scene where they're going down in the basement, that was my second favorite scene in the book. It was a perfect, fighting in the dark scene. Claustrophobic, gunfire strobing everywhere. It had the perfect ambiance. My favorite scene was the big reveal at the end of the book, which was a, oh my gosh, beautiful climax. Have I talked about the level of violence in this book? It's enough to make you swoon. One guy, get this, got a pistol shoved up his eye. Art at its finest. The banter between the characters is funny. I love it. Chapman is gruff. Clyd has this really bad smoking habit. You know, for a short story like this, less than 100 pages, you don't really have enough time to set up a personality, but this book did it well. My apologies, nameless husband, who was a fine character. You weren't bad, I just have a bad memory. If you just want like a little taste of fantasy but don't want to commit to a big chunker like Name of the Wind that's like 1,000 pages long, I highly suggest this one. It's going to be the first of a whole series. I don't know if they too are going to be short stories or if they're going to be bigger novels. My only complaint about this book was that it is a murder mystery set in a fantasy setting, and because this is a short story, I gave more leeway for this because I kind of understood what was going on. A lot of the world building has to be done through talking, what you might call an info dump, but it didn't bother me because it was fitted in naturally. But as you're only learning about the world as the characters are talking to each other, you don't know important information until the characters talk about it. And this whole time I was trying to solve who murdered all these rich people. It is impossible to do because you are missing information until the characters acknowledge that information right when the big climax is happening. You can't solve the mystery. I was a little bummed out by that because it kinda, like the villain kinda came out of nowhere to me. So that was kind of the world building's fault, but I still highly enjoyed it. Go read it, go love it. Tell me what your favorite violent death was. I'm looking forward to it. Next up, away from all the grisly, brittle bones and all the other stuff breaking in Breach of Peace, we have a nice little contemporary. It's called Tokyo Ever After. I should stop reading contemporaries. This is a good contemporary. I'm just never, ever, ever satisfied with the endings in contemporaries. Everyone ends up happy. I don't like that. Although, like, one of the villains in this book kind of got off scot-free, but the other villain in this book was, like, kind of a letdown. I'll discuss. Tokyo Ever After, 3.5 out of 5. It's fine. It's funny. It's very funny. That's what I mainly look forward to in a contemporary. That's actually the #1 requirement. Was it funny? Oh boy, can't wait to wrap up that other book I'm reading this month, the only book, because it's a contemporary and it's not funny and I'm dying. Send hope. Anyways, Tokyo Ever After. I don't remember anyone's name. So main girl protagonist, okay? She's living in the USA. Kinda cool. Pretty dope. She's living in California, but she's Japanese. People around her aren't Japanese. She feels like she doesn't belong. She does have a small group of Japanese friends. And one day, I don't remember exactly how this revelation came across, but I think one of her friends was like, hey girlfriend, main girl character, are you like an exiled princess or something? Main girl was like, what the heck you talking about, baby? I don't know what you mean, what these words are saying. Best friend is like, girl, your face, it looks like the crown prince of Tokyo's face. Not Tokyo, like all of Japan, not just Tokyo. Main girl character is like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm royalty. Let me go ask my mama. Main girl character goes back to mama. Mama spills the beans. She had a little one-night stand, little quick relationship with the crown prince when he was over here in the USA for a little bit. Lo and behold, 9 months later, main girl protagonist arrives. Yay, the story can start. Main girl character is like, mother, why have you kept this information from me? I've always felt like I've never belonged, and you have hidden this whole other side of me away from me. The mom character is like, I know I felt conflicted about this, but being royalty is such a hassle. I saw how the reporters and your father's entourage treated His Highness. All the stuff he had to go through just to get from one place to another, and I didn't want to force that upon you. I wanted you just to live a normal life, but now that you know and you're a legal adult, you can get in contact with your dad if you want. Maybe he'll let you come over. So, main girl character, she does get in contact with her dad. She manages through some connections to get an email to him. And so she comes home one morning in the USA, and there's like a flock of Japanese reporters from the actual Japan. They're taking pictures. They're making a kerfuffle out of everything because not even Mr. Prince guy knew he had a kid. Whoa, this is downright scandalous. Some very important people from Japan who are working the palace, they've come over to America. They've came to see the main girl character. They have invited her over to go to Japan and meet her father. Our girl, she says yes. And that's when all the trouble starts. Like, everyone just expects this, like, suburban girl to just automatically fit in with palace life. That's not how it works. Have you seen Cinderella 2? Immediately when she lands in Japan, she's like, she's wearing comfy clothes. She's not dressed up because she's been on a flight for 14 hours. Immediately, the reporters in Japan are like, oh my gosh, look at that sweatshirt. Gross. Already, she's in newspapers. Princess is a slob. Princess is a disappointment. Dishonor. Dishonor on your cow. I know that's like Mulan and that's Chinese, but it was in my head. So much responsibility is just dropped on top of this girl the moment she gets there. And it doesn't suit our main girl character's, wild personality. I do like this character. She's pretty funny, but there are forces in the palace at work against her. She's got this big brooding bodyguard who is most definitely not gonna be the main character's love interest. She's got these royal twin cousins who are just dead set on humiliating her, making her leave the palace, embarrassing her at every opportunity. They are what we call jerkwads, royal jerkwads. And so this book confronts the feeling of not belonging anywhere. She felt like she didn't belong in America. Now she's feeling like she doesn't belong in Japan. What is she? Who is she? It's a Cinderella story, like Cinderella too. It was a cute little tale and I was interested in all the drama and stuff in the beginning. But then, it's a contemporary. Most contemporaries I read have a really unique premise in the beginning. But then they slip onto the regular tropes of a contemporary. The love interest, something happens in the third act that throws the love interest away from them. It follows that path. It gets pretty predictable throughout the rest of the book. I don't know why I keep doing this like my hand's a fish. Maybe I'm showing you how convoluted the plot is, but this plot wasn't convoluted. It was a very simple, cute book. If you want a taste of Tokyo, I highly suggest you pick this up. It is as sweet as mochi. I love mochi, especially the green tea kind. I think it just confirms that I need to stick to literary fiction, because that's where all the drama really happens. Next up, I have a DNF. This was a book, an advanced reader copy I was asked to read. I DNF'd at 233 pages because I didn't connect with any of the characters for 233 pages out of 500. And this book is called Shade. Also, it was really hard to suspend my disbelief in this book, and I'll get into it because it involves a lot of police work. So the premise of this book is that we have this detective, or FBI agent. He's an FBI agent. His name, at least his last name, is Shade. Shade has gone crazy. He has gone from, an honorable cop to someone who's on a killing spree. He's killing women. And his ex-fellow FBI agents / friends, they've kind of traced the pattern of his kills to this new girl. She's our female protagonist. I don't remember her name. She was a mess. Female protagonist, the FBI agents, first they come to her door, they go knock knock, she opens up and they're like, "Hello ma'am, we are here to inform you that you might die." They're like, "We're gonna protect you so Shade can't kill you. Shade has been killing women with red hair and blue eyes and you fit that pattern, so we're gonna we're gonna protect you, lady." It's semi-funny, because at this point, with the FBI agents at main character girl's front door, Shade has only killed one other girl who did have red hair and blue eyes, but how is one instance a pattern? How did they get to her? How did they look at the evidence and say, oh, this girl is the next potential victim? I don't know. Maybe it was further explained past the 233 pages that I read, but right now I'm like, how did they pick her? Anyways, you think our girl would be excited to get some police protection, because this Shade, he's brutally murdered another girl. I think he even ripped her heart out. He's also beaten up all the police officers who've tried to stop him. But our girl is disappointed. She wants to die. Our girl's been in the military. She went overseas. She's seen some stuff. She has some survivor's guilt right now. So she's like, maybe this is just justice at work. Maybe I deserve to die. But she doesn't get the chance to say, oh, no, thank you. I don't want your services, Mr. FBI man. Because, ring, ring, oh, they get a call. Oh, wait, Shade is on his way right now. Come on, girl, into the police cruiser. Vroom, vroom away. And so Shade starts coming after them. So why I DNF'd? Well, first, 233 pages, and I didn't get to know any of these characters' personality. We get to know the backstory of our traumatized main character girl, but a backstory isn't a personality, and that's all we got. Same with the lead detective guy. He was just the detective. He didn't have a face. Honestly, he's a blank page. A face, a personality. It was just, we're just here to talk about cop things, and let's make the plot and the action go faster. This book's primarily focused on the action rather than the people. And then I think the biggest thing, this was the biggest thing that made me DNF the book. It's Shade himself, the person, and the police in this book. Two things. First off, Shade, too, was in the military, which makes me think that Shade and main protagonist girl have some sort of connection, and that's why he's after her rather than the red hair and blue eyes thing. But Shade, he went overseas. I don't know the word for this, but I'm just going to say went crazy. He started to have hallucinations on the battlefield. He blacked out during a gunfire. And when he came back to, he was the only one alive in his platoon. Like, they're just scattered around him, which makes him think, did I do that? He got discharged. He went back to the FBI. Now, the FBI know that he has these hallucinations, yet they take him back and they put him out in the field again. Shade's boss says he only puts him in the non-lethal, like non-confrontational cases, like stuff where his trauma, his PTSD, it is less likely to ignite. But how do you know, sir, that this won't cause like an episode? It was just so hard for me to believe that the FBI would take this man who has been discharged because of his hallucinations and PTSD, that they'd take him back into such a dangerous field as the FBI. I brought this up to my dad because I'm like, could this happen? My dad was a police officer, he was on SWAT, he was a detective, all of that. And I'm like, Dad, so if there was this FBI agent, he left to go fight in a war, and he was discharged because he was suffering from PTSD, hallucinations, and it was making him dangerous around his comrades, would they accept him back into the FBI? My dad was like, it depends on if he's seeking like medical attention now for the PTSD, because they might face a discrimination disability lawsuit. So that could happen. Okay, we'll put a pin in that. But a little bit down the road, like halfway through the book, so I don't feel like this is a spoiler, they managed to temporarily capture Shade. They got him in a straitjacket because he's just so good at getting out of situations. Shade does something, because they're either like leading him down a hallway at the police station, or they're like wheeling him in a wheelchair down the hallway. Shade does something that freaks out the deputies around him, the FBI agents. It freaks them out so much that the FBI agent, who's like escorting Shade in a straitjacket down the hall, he draws a knife and he stabs Shade with it. Why would you do that? I know why. Because Shade could not escape in this moment because he was in a straitjacket. So the only way to get him out of this situation is to literally put a knife in him so he can like saw his arms free. Oh, but Mr. Policeman, I know you have other stuff you can use to knock out a restless prisoner. You have a taser, you have a baton, you have your fist, but you chose to stab a prisoner with a straitjacket on just for plot convenience. That's when I stopped. I'm like, mighty convenient. So that's why I didn't read. That's why. Those were all my ebooks. I got 2 more physical books. Next up, we got this weird book called Born. I am going to fail at being a booktuber, a book reviewer at this book, because just so much crazy stuff happened, I can't even break it down. But it is an enjoyable book if you're used to like really flowery scientific language. Some of the stuff just went right over my head, but there's also parts that made me laugh. So I gave it a 3. I just don't want to reread it again because it'll make my brain explode. So it's also a book I'm going to unhaul. So let me tell you what I do know about this book. Imagine, if you will, a city, but this is an apocalyptic city, blown to shrapnel, fallen skyscrapers, the unwashed masses roaming through the streets, cannibalizing, stealing, pillaging, just being plain buttholes. The destruction of the city, it is the company's fault. The company's, because I don't know what the heck their mission was, but the company was kind of the ruler of the city. Well, then that all changed when apparently they made a giant bear. This bear broke out of the company, and when I say giant, I don't mean like a big grizzly bear standing 16 feet tall or whatever. I mean, this bear is bigger than the Statue of Liberty, and he can fly. That's right, y'all. Flying bear breaks out of the company's headquarters, knocking down buildings with his big bear booty. So that's why the city's all messy. And in this ravaged land, we have our main character, Rachel. Rachel's a scavenger. Run into this building, picking up a can of beans, go into that building. Oh, look, a nice little pillow to rest my head on. Stuff like that. But the main place to go to get the good stuff is to the flying bear. His name is Mord, by the way. So Mord, he's knocking down buildings, eating people, and he gets tired at the end of the day. He can't sleep in the air. Duh. So he has to sleep on the ground. And because he's been knocking over all this stuff, he has some good equipment all tangled up in his fur. So that's what Rachel does. She sneaks up on the bear while he's sleeping. And Rachel takes the little goodies that she finds. But one day while she's parting through Mord's pelt, she finds this green lump. Rest assured, it's not a mole, it's not a pimple. It's its own little organism. This lump. It's Bourne, the titular character. He's my favorite. Rachel, she's amused by this thing. It like creates this comforting aroma to whoever holds it. So she's like, I'm gonna take this home and hope it doesn't kill me in the night. I would do the same. So she goes back home, she sets Bourne on the countertop, and then he just starts growing. And then he starts talking. He grows into like this lamp squid plant thing, but he can also shapeshift into whatever he wants. And he and Rachel, they're just the good buddies. They play games together. He's like her constant companion. She's like a mother figure to him because she's teaching him all these things about the world. But we don't know what Bourne is. What we do know is probably nothing good. So the first half of the book, which was my favorite, is just Rachel and Bourne exploring the world together. What I liked about this book in the beginning was that it wasn't trying to solve the apocalypse problem. No, it was like, we're just gonna live with this now. So it was more about the characters and their interactions, which I, as a character reader, really liked. But then towards the last half of the book, that's when the plot came in and I didn't like it. I mean, yes, we gotta take down the flying bear, which could be awesome. We have to get rid of our rival drug seller called the Magician. We need to get her out of the picture. That would be awesome. We have to survive the moored proxies, which are like smaller bears that the big flying bear can control. We also have like evil children running around. All of that is awesome. But like all the words on top of all that, which is just describing nonsense, it confused the heck out of me. We were talking about things towards the end of the book that I didn't know existed in this book. It was just very confusing. I think one person in this book turned out to be a fish, and I don't even know if that really happened. So I highly suggest to read this cute little book. Can an apocalyptic book be called cute? I thought it was cute. But keep your eyes open. Tell me what happened, because I am confused. And our last book, we have a thriller. 3.5. That's my standard thriller rating for a book I liked, but still have like some problems with. What we have here is The Chalk Man. So back in the 80s, our main character, Eddie, and also side note, I think this is like the third thriller book I've read that had a male protagonist. They're all women. I like a man every now and then. But anyways, back to the 80s. We have Eddie, his group of friends. They're young, they're children, they're just playing around, having a good time until a dead body is found. That'll ruin your summer vacation, won't it? Especially when you're the one to find the dead body. But what's more peculiar about this dead body is that the boys were led to it via some chalk drawings. Like someone intentionally brought these boys to this girl's rather mutilated corpse. Like her arms over there, her legs over there, her head is completely missing. We know who this girl is, but we never find the head. Other terrible things happen in this town, but life goes on. 30 years later, Eddie's all grown up. He's still living in the same house, by the way. And one of his childhood friends, who he hasn't talked to in a very long time because they had a falling out, childhood friend guy rings him up. He's like, hey, yo, Eddie, I know who killed the girl. I'm coming to tell you right now. Actually, he didn't ring him up. It was through a letter, but I don't know what gesture to make for a letter. Hey, yo, Eddie, I'm coming over right now. So this whole murder gets dug right back up, right back again. And it seems to be creating more issues for the friends. Now more spooky stuff keeps happening around Eddie, and the chalk drawings have returned. And one of his friend group gets murdered as well. Very interesting premise. Let me tell you one good thing. There are multiple mysteries to solve in this book. We have to figure out who killed the girl, where her head is, who's drawing the chalk drawings. Then we have the present mysteries, like who's drawing the chalk drawings in the present now. Who killed the friend? Why is this all happening again? Oh, well, first we have to also, back in the past, like the kids at the time know who the girl is, but we, the reader, are intentionally kept in the dark. And there's other girl characters in the book, and they're all coincidentally missing from the present. So we also need to figure out who that girl character was for us. Lots of stuff to unravel. I had fun with that. But besides finding out who our murder villain was, we have other drama in this book. This one I had a bit of a tiff with. It's about stereotypes. One of the people who is causing a bit of a ruckus in the past storyline, he's a reverend, and even though he's speaking the word of our Lord Jesus Christ, he's not a good person. No, he's a bit of a Richard. And what is also going on in the past is that an abortion clinic was just set up in their town, and our main character's mom, back in the past timeline, she's a doctor there, like head doctor or something, and there are pro-life protests going on, and the preacher's like the head of it. These are all stereotypes that I've seen many times in books, and they're all written the same way, very lazily. The Reverend, every word out of his mouth is a Bible verse. The pro-lifers, all they do is yell in the book. Rather than painting pro-lifers as someone, walking in a, what's it called, strike, like a strike picket line, yelling and screaming, why not have an actual debate, pro-life versus pro-choice, because that's where the juicy stuff happens right there. Instead of having a reverend just spouting out Bible verses that honestly don't even apply to the situation at hand, why can't we just have a reverend who just wants to teach kids how to skateboard? I think it's just the author picked out two stereotypes, and rather than fleshing them out with people, personalities, they had a ready-made, lazy motive for each set of people, and they just threw them in the book. And these are very big events, the Reverend and the whole abortion clinic thing that are happening in the past timeline. So this is a good chunk that I'm stuck here reading it. And it's just jam-packed with cliches and things I've read a billion times before, and I'm just so tired of it. It made me so glad whenever we hopped back into the future timeline just to be away from all that drama. Something that should have been really interesting, the catalyst of a bunch of things, was just so slow, dragging your feet through mud. And you remember what I said about there being multiple mysteries to solve and how I like that? It was I do like that, but towards the end, it's I forgot, because we had 9 mysteries to solve, and I would remember 7, but then 2 of the mysteries would come out of nowhere and I'd be like, oh yeah, that existed. Stuff was solved. I remember the big mystery was solved in the future timeline, and it was not satisfying. I'm just that's it? There was actually a fake out reveal, you are the killer. And I remember being so mad at that. I'm that is not the killer. If it is the killer, this is a stupid book. And even though I had 30 pages left in the book, I was about to throw it out the window. But then the guy who's being accused, he's no, it was literally not me. Here's where I was that night. It's not me. And the guy who accused was oh snap, my bad, bro. But then he finally put the real puzzle pieces together. Then he accused the right person, and I still wasn't happy with that. But I had 20 pages left at this point. I'm I can finish it. It was just a very disappointing book. But the last chapter, oh my gosh, it was gorgeous. That's what the extra 0.5 in this book was for me. 3.5. I love the ending. It made so much sense, and it solved one of the other mysteries in just a few lines. It was a big oh moment, but it ends very sad too. Not for a oh someone died reason, but for something that will happen in the future. Loved the ending. The past parts was a bit of a drag to go through. I enjoyed the present parts. Also, I really like thrillers that have the point of view from children. This one does. They just make everything so much more whimsical. It's fun. I know a lot of people don't like reading from kids' point of view. If you're one of those people, tell me why. Some of my favorite books are The Room, Imaginary Friend, all told from kids. But that is it, my bros. 5 books. All of them were above a 3 besides One DNF. So, fairly decent. But now, for October's wrap-up. There's not going to be a wrap-up, no. By the time you're watching this, I would have only read 1 book. I might actually still be reading it at this moment because it is slowly sucking my soul out, and you will get a full review for it. Y'all, I'm reading Better Together by Christine Riccio. I am going to die.